Imagine an archaeologist brushing dirt away from two ancient bodies in the ground. They are not scattered, not tossed aside. They are placed close enough that, from above, it almost looks intentional, maybe even tender. And that is where the uncomfortable question begins. Are we looking at love, or are we placing our own modern feelings onto bones that can no longer correct us? Because before love letters, before wedding rings, before poetry, dating, promises, or even written language, human beings were already sitting beside fires, sleeping in groups, raising children, losing people, and remembering the dead. But did they actually love each other? Not just reproduce, not just stay close because the night was cold, not just survive beside whoever happened to be nearby. Love. That strange feeling where one person becomes heavier in your mind than the others. The face you search for when the camp goes quiet. The absence that hurts differently. The person whose body, even after death, cannot just be left behind like an object. Here is the problem. Ancient humans left us many things. Bones, tools, charcoal marks, footprints pressed into mud, caves, burials. But they did not leave us a private sentence saying, "I miss her." No one carved into stone, "I cannot stop thinking about him." So if we want to ask whether ancient humans fell in love, we cannot look for the word love. We have to look for the traces love leaves behind. And the first trace is uncomfortable for a lot of modern people. Ancient humans were not emotionless cave monsters. They were not the cartoon brutes people imagine, dragging life around by force. They were humans. Rougher world, yes. Different tools, different dangers, different rules. But inside the skull, the emotional machinery was already deeply human. Fear, attachment, jealousy, comfort, trust, grief. The fire was older, the language was smaller. But the body was already doing many of the things our bodies still do now. And love, biologically, does not begin with roses. It begins much lower than that. In chemistry. When two people form a bond, the brain uses ancient systems: oxytocin, vasopressin, dopamine. Oxytocin helps with closeness and trust. Vasopressin is linked with attachment and pair bonding. Dopamine makes another person feel rewarding, important, hard to ignore. That strange early pull. When one person keeps walking into your thoughts, even when you are trying to think about something else, is not something civilization invented. Civilization only gave it better lighting and more complicated excuses. The system itself is old, older than cities, older than marriage laws, older than anyone needing a word like romance. But here is where people get it wrong. Chemistry can explain bonding. It cannot, by itself, prove love. A hormone is not a confession. A brain scan is not a love letter. So we have to ask a harder question. Why would evolution make humans so painfully attachable in the first place? The answer is not romantic at first. It is almost cold. Human babies are helpless for a long time. A newborn deer may stand quickly. A baby chimp can cling to its mother. But a human baby cannot even hold its own head properly for months. In the ancient world, that was not just cute. That was a survival emergency. A crying child meant noise. A weak child meant carrying. A hungry child meant someone had to share food. A sleeping child meant someone had to stay alert while the fire burned low. Human children needed years. Years of food. Years of protection. Years of adults not walking away when things became difficult. That changed the emotional shape of our species. For our ancestors, a stable bond was not just a sweet preference. It could mean the difference between a child surviving the winter or disappearing into it. A partner who stayed close could gather food, share warmth, carry tools, watch for danger, protect the child, and keep the most fragile member of the group alive. So evolution did not only build desire. Desire can leave. It built attachment, the pressure to return, the need to stay, the ache when someone is missing. And yes, that sounds cold. But it does not make the feeling fake. Hunger is biological. Pain is biological. Grief is biological. Nobody says they are unreal because the body helps create them. Love may have had survival value, but the experience of loving someone was still an experience. A body keeping another body warm does not become meaningless just because warmth helps survival. A person saving food for someone else is still making a choice. Someone waiting before leaving camp is still saying something, even without words. And the strongest evidence may not come from romance at all. It may come from death. Across ancient sites, archaeologists have found bodies buried with care, not thrown away, not abandoned like broken tools, placed, covered, sometimes protected with objects, sometimes buried with ornaments, tools, or other people, sometimes arranged in ways that make us pause longer than science is comfortable admitting. But we have to be careful here. A grave is not a diary. It does not tell us exactly who loved whom. A burial could mean family. It could mean ritual. It could mean status. It could mean fear. It could mean grief for a child, a parent, a friend, a partner. This is where cheap certainty would ruin the truth. We cannot interview the dead. We cannot ask someone from 40,000 years ago what they felt while digging the ground. But a grave is not nothing. A grave is behavior. And behavior matters. You do not carefully place what means nothing to you. You do not return to the dead unless the living remember. You do not spend energy on a body that can no longer help you survive unless something in the mind refuses to treat that person as gone without meaning. That is why grief matters so much. Grief is attachment after the person is no longer reachable. It is love with nowhere to go. Not always romantic love. Not always the kind of love a modern viewer wants to imagine. But still attachment. Still memory. Still evidence that another human being had become more than just useful. So no, we cannot prove ancient humans felt love in the exact way people describe it today. They did not have our songs. They did not have our wedding vows. They did not have our text messages left unanswered at 2 a.m. They did not have the modern theater around love. But they had the deeper ingredients. They had nervous systems capable of bonding. They had chemistry that made certain people matter. They had long childhoods that rewarded staying close. They had jealousy, touch, care, memory, loss, and grief. They had reasons to protect one person more carefully than another. Reasons to notice who was missing. Reasons to share warmth when the night turned dangerous. And maybe this is the part we should not over-romanticize. Ancient love was probably not clean. It was not soft music and perfect timing. It was hunger, smoke, cold ground, a child asleep nearby, someone cleaning a wound because infection could take a person fast, someone saving the last piece of food, someone waiting a few extra moments before the group moved on, someone digging a grave with more care than survival strictly required. Maybe they never said, "I love you." Maybe they had no sentence that meant exactly that. Maybe all they had was a hand near another hand, a shoulder pressed against another shoulder in the dark, a body kept warm, a person remembered after death. And maybe that is enough to make the question harder than it first sounded. Did ancient humans fall in love? The honest answer is not a perfect yes. Science cannot open an ancient mind and read the feeling inside it. But everything we can still examine, the biology, the pair bonding, the helpless children, the care, the grief, the deliberate burials, the way humans kept choosing closeness in a world that punished weakness, leans toward yes. Not the polished version. Not the version with rings, ceremonies, and pretty words. Something older, rougher, quieter, less decorative, maybe even more serious. Because before civilization taught humans how to describe love, survival had already taught the body how to hold on.